Now on a K, this is a 17 Fusion with 84 miles on it. And a lot of times I'll pre-look at the vehicle before I start filming, just to make sure it's not going to be something boring, and well, they're all pretty much boring, but something just totally useless. This one may turn out to be something. It may not. It's a brand new car, but the symptom is it just won't go anywhere. And it stalled out on them. And bottom line is that it's not charging. So this thing was running off the battery. So I've got a battery charger on here, 10 amps, and I've already looked at some codes. Let me just set up here. I looked these out in the parking lot when we were trying to make a determination if they needed to leave the vehicle or not. Make sure it wasn't something real simple. Excuse me. And basically, we've got all those codes in the system. This 3003, if we click on it, it's battery voltage. And you notice there's tons of 3003s in here, but they're all from a different modules. So on newer vehicles, you have to really pay attention to when you pull a code, especially a U code, you have to actually look at where module it originated from, or you won't know which way to go. So obviously the battery is low. If we go down here to snapshot data and we look at this 6E9, which is engine starter performance, and we look at what happened when it was set, our V power was 9.31 volts, and that would definitely cause a starting concern. So let's pick up here. I don't know what's going on with it. I haven't done anything else. I'm going to hook up the vehicle communication module and we'll see what it does. Here's our generator. Current sensor. Here's our PCM. Battery junction box. High current battery junction box, battery charging sensor, battery current sensor, generator current sensor, BCM, and battery. So we need to know if we've got power to our generator. But that means I gotta get under the hood. I don't want to get under the hood yet. So let's look at a couple of PIDs. Clear out these pre-selected PIDs, and then we want V-Power, Gen Mon and Gen Con. Generator voltage desired, Gen Command. See a Gen Mon on here? Let's get them all. Let's see the Gen Mon. And let's get V-Power. That's buffered. So we've got lights on, there's no fault, no fault, no fault, no fault, no fault, no fault. Battery voltage is 12.2. Generator command is 3.57%. Generator voltage desired is 11.99. Let's start it up. Alright, so the engine's running and we are producing nothing. We're still at 12 point, well actually we're down a little bit. I got the battery charger on it. .1. Our generator command is very hard to see. Pulse desired set point is 13.95. We don't have any faults all the way around. No charging. The command definitely responded because it knows that it's unplugged now, so it's doing a lot different command than it was. We should default start charging though, but we're not. Pushed the NAS truck out, and in the meantime our alternator showed up for our 17 Fusion. That alternator. I know you're probably thinking, what alternator is he talking about? Well, I had to do a little thinking on that thing. It's pretty boring watching me think. Watching my brain fry. So one thing I noted, I went ahead, I'm used to looking at it on a smart charging system, Gen Con, Gen Mon, PIDs, and this doesn't have a Gen Mon PID. And what you can do, if you have both of those PIDs, is you can take the regulator, unplug it, and jump those two together, and they should mirror each other on the computer, you know, your laptop, whatever you're using the monitor with. So I don't have that. So I just simply checked those wires, Gen Mon, Gen Con, all the way back to the PCM off camera, and just load tested them with a headlight to make sure they were intact, because there's a connector way over here behind the headlight, and it's down in the bumper. It's hard to get to. I was going to check to make sure it was latched and secure, being a brand new vehicle, but I load tested with a headlight, and you know, that thing pulls like 6 amps, and that's plenty on that tiny little wiring. So the other thing was, with the unplugged, you can make it default and charge. If the alternator is good, you can it'll start charging right away most of the time, or you can give it a little throttle, and it'll self-excite and start charging through the internals, the way the circuitry is wired inside the unit. So we need a generator, and this one is above the AC compressor, and guess what? The AC compressor belt is a stretchy belt. Not a lot to do up here. Alternator belt and the upper bolt. Now everything else do from underneath. Last thing we gotta do up here is disconnect the battery cable. Now normally I would never condone disconnecting a positive battery cable first, but The negative is pretty hard to get to, and it's one of them wedge style. Real lovely design. This is just normal and easy to get to, so we're going to pop it off. On daylight today, I would usually back the car in so I can take advantage of the natural daylight out there. I don't have to worry about headlight. It's pretty gloomy out today, but there's still more daylight. But one of the reasons I just went in and drove it in straight, because a couple reasons. This truck's behind the car blocking it. This thing has really nice wheels and tires, and if you run over this lift incorrectly, you can really damage the wheels and tires. And lastly, the hood will hit the door when the car's on the lift backwards, so you have to lower the door down, and it kind of defeats the purpose of having the door up for daylight. So I just deal with the cave. I'll tell you, this lift really shines in this instance. Anybody that's ever worked on these fusions with the ground effects, they all have them. It's difficult. If you try to lift it on a lift like that with pegs, it's a nightmare. But this lift has these little arms that flip up, and it fits perfectly in that notch to engage the pinch weld. So you can see how easily that just slips right by the ground effects without damaging them. That'd be a trick, getting that left arm under there to grab that pinch weld and clear those. Basically all I'm doing is disconnecting the electrical connectors on the AC compressor, because it's got to come off. I think it's going to come down below where this compressor's sitting at. We got connector here, and then you can see the alternator, regulator, power wire. And right there, get my headlight not to blind you. Right there's the generator sensor. So we got to take 1, 2, 3, 2 bolts, 1 nut, and we'll have to take that stud out, and then we'll just let this swing out of the way, and then we'll take the alternator out. And I'm not going to take the stretchy bolt off. I'm just going to let it flop off of there when I take the bolts out of the compressor. One down. Hung up on our dowels. Pop this off our dowel pins. Pop the belt off. Slide this out of the way. remember to put that bolt back in before we get it lined back up into place. This is not too bad a job, but stretchy belt kind of complicates things. Going back together. Looking at here, I don't think you can see anything. So we're gonna actually take this whole entire bracket off of the engine with the alternator, and then we'll separate that. And that's the power wire I was just disconnecting up there. Really weird fastener selection they have on this thing. Like one's this size bolt, one's that size bolt, one's a nut, one's a stud, which is no big deal when you're moving one little tiny little component. But if you're taking this thing apart for major repair, it could be extremely confusing remembering where everything went. There she is. So now we're going to swap this bracket to the new generator. Got some weight to it. So it's got a dowel pin on it, which is nice, but it's not really effective. It doesn't really fit in there. We cannot tighten this up. Can't do a final tighten on this until everything's in place. So see how much it moves. We could really get this thing all bound up if we were just to tighten this in any position here. So we'll get them close. Get it bolted to the block. I'll square it away. That thing's just all over the place. So we're at the point of stretchy belt installation. Here's the tool to put the belt on with. And trust me when I say you are not going to be able to see what the heck I'm doing. I made a stretchy belt video on a, what the heck was that thing? A Fiesta. I did it when I had the engine out, and there was a good reason for that. So you can see. Plus it's easier to put the belt on with the engine out. So my hand's probably going to be in the way of what I'm doing. You'll get the idea, because that just slips around the belt and pulley, and then you just simply roll the grill on. It's real easy. Nothing to it. It's a whole lot easier than other ones. This is probably actually easier than dealing with a tensioner. Let's see what she looks like. So we're on the AC compressor, on the crankshaft pulley. Nice and inline and straight. And like I said, this piece, it's pretty good design actually. It just lays against the crank pulley face. And then it's got a couple of ribs in there that catch the belt grooves. And then the belt is trapped on this side of this bolt here, so it can't walk off. It forces it to roll right on. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I was having trouble figuring out this thing had auto start stop, and I'd forgot all about it, but there's an easy way to figure it out. They pretty much all have the battery sensors on them. Excuse me, not battery sensors, but amp clamps. So this one's got an amp clamp on a negative cable and an amp clamp on the positive cable at the alternator. But if it has auto start stop, it'll actually have a sensor bolted to the negative cable. I mean, it's part of it, and it's more accurate than just that amp clamp. All right, let's see what we're at here. We're at 12.32. Let's start it up. That looks a little better, huh? Oh, my meter moved, sorry. How's that? 14.7. Make sure the belt is riding correctly. It is. Both look good. That's weird, man. Bad alternator from the factory. So we're gonna call this good. I'm gonna ship it. I'm gonna clear the codes in it because I know I had the battery cable off. I'll just double check it. You never know, something may stay. And call the customer and then have their car back. They have their brand new car back. As always, thank you for viewing. As a final thought, this is when I try to take the extra step to check, make sure there's no codes in the system. We've got 2 generator codes, and that's where I had the regulator unplugged when I was driving in and out of the shop. And even though I had the battery cable off, it still retained memory. And a lot of these newer cars, the battery cable doesn't do anything. You take it off and it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. It'll still keep on trucking like nothing ever happened. So it's not gonna hurt anything. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. But whoever would have to work on this car after me could get really confused on, is there a problem with the car? Is something going on? We don't want to create that confusion. While that's doing its thing, pull the lift arms out of here. Let's see, looks like we're all done. And we're all clear.